Hey everybody, welcome back to Alfred's Basic Adult Piano Course, Lesson Book Level 1. This video is Lesson 84. We're going to cover pages 102 and 103 in our book today, the song Laura. All right, so welcome back and thank you so much for joining me today. We are getting closer and closer to finishing up Level 1. Just a few more songs to go. And remember that in this section of the book, you're putting everything that you've learned in the book together. And this is kind of why we're here. This is kind of why we do this, to make good music. So remember, all these pieces in the back are nice performance pieces. So you could play these for friends and family. If you are thinking about getting involved in a piano recital, these would be great pieces for that as well. So the thing about Laura is it's got a lot of accidentals, and that's going to be the biggest challenge I find with this piece. So as a review, accidentals are flats, sharps, and naturals. When we worked on those individually throughout the book, sharps, for example, we learned that sharps go up, right? It's the very next key on the piano to the right. So when you're working in sharps, you kind of have this mindset that you're going up. And when you're working on flats, which is the opposite, flats go down, you have this mindset that you're going down. Well, in this piece, you get a combination of lots of sharps and flats. So that's going to test that ability. Now you're putting it together probably more than you have in any other piece in this book. So you can't just get into this single mindset of I'm thinking sharps, notes going up. You gotta go back and forth. So that's going to take a little bit of time of getting used to. The other thing is the naturals. Now, the naturals, there's an easy trick about naturals. When you see a natural sign, that note is always going to be a white key. Naturals are never the black keys. Never. It's always the white key. Now, a flat or a sharp could be a white key. Here's E, and this is a good example. E sharp is still a white key. And F flat, here's F. If I flat it, that is also a white key. But a natural is always a white key, always, always. So that's a little heads up that when you see that, you're automatically going to think it's got to be a white key. Now, the other thing that's going to be tested is the rule about sharps and flats and naturals within the same measure. So remember, the rule is if I have a note that's flat, let's say, in one of the measures, an E, and that same E is later on in the measure, they're not going to mark a flat next to that E. There's a rule that says that note is still flat unless it has a natural. We're going to see that in this piece as well. And that rule applies, of course, to sharps and even natural signs. When you see a natural sign on beat 1, that note is going to be a natural again on beat 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever, even with a key signature. Now, there is no key signature in Laura. We are in the key of C major, but it doesn't really feel like it because if you play your C major scale, it's all white keys. Well, if you play this song, it's not going to be all white keys. Like 1/3 of the notes are accidentals, at least. So that is going to be our biggest challenge. It is a slow piece, which is nice because slow pieces give us more time to work and you don't have to spend as much time trying to get the piece faster. So that's one nice thing about slow pieces. But the other thing about a slow piece is it says slowly with expression right underneath the title. A slow piece needs filler, right? If you're going fast and you have a lot of notes, the notes are kind of filling in all the spaces, all the gaps. But if you're going slow and you're just holding notes and you're not doing something with those notes, then we have gaps in the music. So just because you have slow notes, long notes, doesn't mean we can just sit on them. You want to do something musical with them. And that might be, volume. Usually, a lot of times it has to do with dynamics. Or maybe it's how we lean into each of those notes or push forward slightly with tempo or pull back. So there's different details that you need to typically fill in to make a slow piece sound interesting. And we'll do some of that too in this piece as well. And there's a lot of pedal. The pedal is going to get a little tricky in places. When we first learned pedal in this book, it was almost like you pedal every measure. And the rule generally has been with the chord changes. And that's still true for the most part. But even if you have, let's say, some passing notes and there's not a chord, but those notes are really tight, really close to each other in either hand, you got to pedal, so that it doesn't become too muddy. There's not going to be a whole lot of that in this piece, but you're not going to be pedaling exactly the same spot every measure. So we'll get to that later. Usually I like to do pedal near the end, so we'll save that for the end, and I'll throw up the pedal camera as well so you can be watching my foot. But hopefully at this point, you've done enough pedal that you feel very comfortable with the movements, because when you get to level 2, we will talk about pedal, like where to pedal. But as far as how to pedal, that already needs to be on automatic. So if you feel like you're still struggling with pedal, I don't know what the lesson is offhand, but go back earlier in the book. I think it's Harp Song it's called. I do have a lesson on that, of course. You might want to review that, because that is a very basic introduction, if you will, towards pedaling. All right, so like most pieces, I like to go hand separate. I'm going to start with the right hand. The right hand does have the melody throughout the whole piece. The right hand gets really tricky in some places with fingering as well. Actually, that's going to also happen in the left hand. So I'm going to focus more on notes and fingering first. Not that I won't mention what some of these rhythms are, just to be aware, but like I usually do, I'm going to focus on rhythms after we go through the notes first. So at this point, you could kind of forget hand positions. I mean, not that you're not going to have a starting hand position, but that C position we had in the beginning of the book, and the G position, all that stuff just kind of out the window. Remember, those are beginning tools to help just kind of get you going in the beginning. But once you started learning more and more of the piano and outside the box, you're really going to be playing outside the box as well. So the right hand starts with the 5th finger on B, just below the C, which is 1 octave above middle C. We are in 4/4 time. There are 8th notes, so when we do get deeper into rhythms in a moment, we'll be counting 1 and 2 and, etc. So we got 2 Bs in measure 1. They're 2 beats each because they're half notes. Now, notice the second B is already tied into measure 2. So there are a lot of ties in this piece too. So there will be, I'm not going to say syncopation actually, but there's definitely going to be some holdovers. So on beats 3 and 4 and 1 and you're still tied. Then it gets a little tricky in measure 2, and you're working with some weak fingers here, so really engage your fingers. Remember, curved fingers. You're going to the 4th finger on A sharp, back to B, and here's our first accidental. This A sharp is still sharped. So on beat 3, that A quarter note is still an A sharp. Remember the rule. On beat 4, you're going to jump down to an F sharp with your 2nd finger. And then G with your 3rd finger. And in measure 3, you've got F sharp and A natural. And I'm going to do that with my 2nd and 4th finger. Now the A natural is just a reminder you were playing A sharp. They'll do this actually quite a bit. We learned that the bar line cancels the sharp, right? So they didn't have to put A natural, but 99% of the time it seems that they do, just as a reminder. Probably because most people just, for some reason, just don't get the rule or don't learn it or whatever. But you're going to see that reminder a lot. So F sharp and A, 2 and 4, that's a dotted quarter note. So that's going to be 1 and 2, and then you have another A on the and. And then I'm going to take my thumb down to E. Now notice this E is tied for a long time, a total of 5 beats. So you're going into the last measure and then you're off on 4 because you have a quarter rest. Now on the second line, my fourth finger's on A. They want us to bring our fifth finger down to A, and that's because they're setting us up early for what's to come. So let's move our 5 down to A. So you've got a half note for 2 counts, another A, which is tied into beat 1 of the second measure, and then beat 2, we have a G sharp with our fourth finger. This actually has a very similar pattern to what you did in the first 2 measures on the first line. So you know how you went to the A sharp? Here you're going to G sharp on beat 2 with your fourth finger. Back to A with your fifth finger. And then once again, beat 3 is still sharp. In this case, it is a G sharp. And then I'm going to take my second finger down to E, third finger to F, and then in measure 3, I've got an E and a G natural as a reminder. I'm going to play that with 2 and 4. Now, while you're holding this, take a look at the G. It is tied into measure 4, but the bottom note E is not, and it moves to a D. So this is like 2-part writing is what this is called. The G is going to hang on, and I'm not going to lift my fourth finger off that G while I move my thumb down to D. Now they're whole notes, so the counting is easy. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and obviously your left hand's going to be pretty busy. Going down to the third line, I've got a quarter rest on beat 1. On beat 2, my second finger is going to nudge right over to E flat. And on beat 3 and 4, I've got third finger hitting the F. That is tied into beat 1 of the second measure. So here we are a third time in a row holding a half note into a quarter note. But it's a little different when we go into the second measure here. On beat 2, our second finger is involved here with the E flat. Back to the 3 on F, and then again E flat on beat 4. Remember, it's flat. And F. Now those are eighth notes. I haven't been reminding us of all the eighth notes, but I'll throw that out there while I'm thinking of it. And going into the third measure, we're going to take our thumb on D and our fourth finger on G. That's a dotted quarter note, so that's 1 and 2, and then the eighth note's by itself with the fourth finger, and then beats 3 and 4, the thumb hits the D. So now you're just playing the G and D individually. Now, like our tie earlier, this D is also tied 2 beats into beat 1 for a total of 3 beats in that last measure. When you get to beat 2 of that last measure, you got E flat. Now here's a big move, a big cross under. That thumb is going to come under to G. And as soon as you do that, flip your hand over and get that second finger ready for B flat on beat 4. So that's a pretty big move there. So you want to practice 2 on E flat, thumb coming under the G, and then bringing 2 over to B flat. And then you got to be ready for G and E flat on the bottom line. 1 and 5 makes a lot of sense with the G and E flat. So when you practice, anticipate that because it's visually on the other side of the page, right? And you've just finished this pretty large cross under and then cross over. So anticipate G and E flat, and you'll be glad you did that. So the G and E flat is also a dotted quarter note. So that's 1 and 2. And then this eighth note is still E flat. And the fingering here can get a little tricky, but only because you have options. Now, what I would do, let's see, I would do the 2 finger on A flat. Now the A flat is 4 counts, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and. So it's tied a little bit longer than those previous ties. And then on the second measure, beat 3 and 4 and, you have third finger on the A natural. In the third measure, I would go to F sharp and D with logically 1 and 5. Now here's another situation where the top note is tied and the bottom note will move from F sharp to F natural. But there's more to it than that. Look very, very closely in these two measures. In the third measure, once again, I got F sharp and D. I'm going to hold that for 4 counts. When I get to my last measure, I'm still holding my 5th finger on D, but I move my thumb down to F natural, but the F natural is a whole note. So I'm going to hold that for 4 counts. While I'm holding that, my pinky finger goes up to E on beat 2. My 3rd finger goes to C on beat 3. My 4th finger goes to D. My D is sticking on this piano, so it's not very loud. D on beat 4. So 2-part voicing, or 2-part layers, or there's probably a lot of ways to call it. We've had it before. But this is a little more tricky than what we've had before because of the exchange that's happening here. Holding that D and moving the F is not a big deal, right? But holding this F now while you move up to E, C, and D is a little tricky. So there's this like exchange. I'm holding my 5th finger. Now I'm holding my thumb, so that's a little tricky. The challenge is, I'm holding the thumb here and I got to play with these weaker fingers. Don't give up on that F and lean all your weight towards this. You're going to have to work on stretching the hand and being strong. And actually, you're going to have to work on being extra strong because look at the volume. It actually goes down to a mezzo piano. Softer requires more control and more strength, as you've probably learned by now. So you have to be really strong with that. So you might find yourself working this out for a little while, and that's okay. Okay? Now, when you get to the top of page 103, our 2nd finger is on B. Now, here's the thing. Look at the top line of page 103. In fact, look at the top 2 lines. And look at the top 2 lines of page 102. I think I'm seeing the exact same material. That's always good news, right? Because, yes, it's less to learn. And 2, if it feels familiar, go with it. I mean, you don't want to start page 103 thinking, okay, what are these notes? What are these notes? But if you say, look, I'm repeating what I've already played, if you can tell yourself that, I think your brain kind of kicks in and says, oh, yeah. Now, at this point, it's probably all brand new, and it is brand new. So, but there will come a point, I think, where your brain will kick in and say, oh, yeah, I have had this before. Just play what I had on the first page, rather than looking at it as all new material. There is one different note in the 2nd line, and we'll get to that in just a moment. Now, I'm on the 2nd finger on the B because of where I came from, right? But when I get to the next B, that's where I switch to 5, and that's where you were at the beginning of the song when you played this. So you got a big jump there. Now, the pedal will secure that. So when my pedal's down and I lift my hand, you hear the sound still going, right? So that's the point of the pedal in that measure to help connect that. It's tied, once again, because it's the same material. So 3 and 4 and 1, and here's our A sharp, back to B, back to A sharp for the quarter note, and then 2 on the F sharp for the 8th note, 3 on G, and then 2 and 4 on the F sharp and G, A natural, dotted quarter note. And then A again with the 4th finger, and then down to the thumb on E. And remember, the E's tied for 5 counts. Into that last measure, you're off on beat 4. You bring that 5th finger down to A on the 2nd line. You have a half note, and then another half note tied into the 2nd measure. On beat 2 of the 2nd measure, G sharp, A. And this is where it's different. The first line... I'm sorry, the page 102, the 2nd line, 2nd measure, beat 3, G sharp was a quarter note. Here, it's 2 8th notes, G sharp down to E. And then beat 4 is F quarter note with the third finger. So that part is different. That part's a little bit different, but that's not too bad. That's pretty easy. Next measure, you got E and G. Remember, it's G natural as a reminder. And remember the two-part playing here, you're going to move your thumb down to D, still holding the G with your fourth finger. Now, the third line is different than the first page. You got a quarter rest on beat 1, third finger on F on beat 2, and then G with the fourth finger. That is also tied into beat 1 of the second measure. Beat 2, you're going to go down to E with your second finger. Now, here's a big cross under. Luckily, it's not a stretch like on the other page. It's a little bit tighter, but your thumb comes to F, and then 2 comes immediately to A flat. Now, those are eighth notes, so you're going to have to really work at that. The E is on beat 2, so we've got 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now, the B is with the third finger, and then you're going to go right into E and D on the third measure. Now, here we got two-part writing once again. The bottom layer, you're holding E for 3 counts, and then E again on beat 4. So the bottom layer, my thumb, is going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. The top layer, my pinky and fourth finger, is going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then it's still tied for another 2 counts. The C is with the fourth finger. Now when I put it together, E and D, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. That's a little tricky. On beat 3, you're hitting this D, and you're still holding the E, by the way. And then on beat 4, you're hitting the E again, but not lifting the D. And when you go into the next measure, you're still holding the D, and your thumb goes to F sharp for 2 counts. That's a little tricky. So at the third measure, once again, E and D, we've got 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and then move your second finger to B on beat 3. And then you have a C with the third finger on beat 4. Now this is a little tricky at the bottom. This sneaks up on us. It's not so much the notes, it's the fingering. It's a little tricky. B and E flat. The reason this is tricky is the second finger. You may feel this. You may have already felt this if you've tried it. Your second finger's strong, your fifth finger is weak. B is a white key. White keys are easier to play than black keys. You probably know that by now. They're wider and they're flat. The black key is up higher. You can slip off of it and it's not as wide. So we're asking a weak finger to play a weak note, and we're asking a strong finger to play a strong note. You get it? So to get that balance right there, it just kind of sneaks up on us. So you got to be ready for that. Engage your pinky. Curve it as much as you can. That's 2 counts. Now, the other thing that's tricky about this measure is beat 3 and 4. The B becomes a B flat, and the E flat is still E flat. So there you're hitting 2 black keys. I had to write in an E flat up here in my music, just so I could see that I'm going from, on beat 1, a white key and a black key, and moving to 2 black keys. In addition, look at the E flat now into the next measure. It is tied. This is tied. So you're holding it on beat 1 and you're moving your thumb to A. But that A is also tied. Look what happens on beat 2. I'm still holding the A. My fifth finger goes to E natural. Fourth finger is going to go to E flat, and then my third finger is going to go to D. And I'm still holding the A. Got it? So let's put all that together again. Back to the first measure of this line. I've got 2 and 5 on B and E flat. I'm going to go to 2 and 5. Don't go to the thumb. You're going to save that thumb for the A. I'm going to go to 2 and 5 on B flat and E flat. Now the next measure, I'm going to the thumb on A. I'm still holding my E flat. Now I'm going to hold the A and go to E natural, E flat, and I'm still holding the A when I go to D. Now beat 4, I'm going to take that third finger that's on D and move it down to the A. And then 4 on B. In my third measure, I'm going to end up with thumb and fifth finger on E and C. And you finally get your reward of a nice long whole note. Just before our ending. Our ending is a roll. Only in the right hand, though. It's 3 notes, A, D, and G. Now, I apologize, my D's been sticking. It's wintertime here, so it's not very loud. I really have to bang it. So when I do my roll, my D is weak. But when you do a roll, all 3 notes are supposed to sound even. Even in terms of volume, even in terms of, evenness, rhythm. I don't want to go, or, right, I'm not holding any one longer than the other. Now I'm holding the G because I'm done with the roll. And at that point, I'm really holding all 3 notes because I'm going to have the pedal down. But I strike each one evenly. Bum, bum, bum. Got it? So we've done a few rolls in the book. Not enough, though, to probably say that you should feel like you're mastered at the roll at this point. Now, a roll is understood long before it's mastered. And that's true of a lot of techniques. Techniques are physical. The knowledge is there. The knowledge is easy. The technique, it's like basketball. I know how to shoot a 3-pointer. I have to go behind the line and throw the ball up and aim for the basket. I know what I have to do. But doing it successfully over and over again, that takes technique, that takes practice. Same thing here, same concept. So we understand what a 3-pointer is long before we get good at making basket after basket. Same thing here. You understand a roll long before you master rolling it again and again and again. So my point is, if you haven't mastered it, don't worry. If you haven't mastered it by the end of this lesson, don't worry. You're going to get plenty of chances in level 2, the next book. But the most important things you want to remember are the evenness. Strike each one evenly. Same volume. You don't want to go. Obviously, I'm exaggerating. The harder thing about it is playing very light, relaxed, loose. That's the difficulty because we're so tense sometimes trying to get all the right notes and everything just perfect. Perfection means you're not lazy. Lazy isn't exactly the same thing as relaxed, but when I get lazy around the house, I'm relaxed. So it's a hard thing to do, to be relaxed and perfect at the same time. And that's where the technique falls in. And that's where it takes time. But practice it slowly. And again, my D is not as loud. I apologize. It's really acting up today. There's a trick you can wiggle it back and forth. But the pads inside the piano are what's sticking right now. So the other thing about the roll is how fast would I do a roll? Is it going to be... Whoops, that was sloppy. Since this piece is slow, it's probably not going to be, whipped through that quickly. And we'll get to playing the hands together with the roll in just a moment. See, the left hand has just a single note. So there's a particular way this all comes together. But obviously, make sure you've got your 3 notes down too first. When you're coming into that last measure from the E and C, don't go to the A. I've said this many times. Go to all 3 notes. You can't do a nice roll if you're not already on the notes. It's just no way. And a roll is decoration. Technically, all it is this. The roll is effect. Ornamentation, they call it in music. Ornamentation, because it's like a Christmas tree. I got my tree. That's what matters. Now I'm going to put up some ornaments. I don't have to have ornaments. It's pretty. But what's the point of ornaments if I don't have a tree? Right? So get your tree down first. Get your chord. Get your outline. Know exactly where you're going. Then when you do the roll, you have a lot more control. All right, so that takes care of the notes and the fingering. Let's look a little bit more into the rhythm. So at the beginning, we did say 4/4 time. We are going to count 1 and 2 in, which we've already done a lot of when we went through the notes. But let's dig into that counting a little bit more. I won't go through the entire piece straight through. I like to break it up and spend a moment talking about specific sections that are harder and will take more work. Now at the beginning, it's pretty easy, long notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and that second measure is already going to be hard because 1, the combination again of accidentals with mixed rhythms. So you're coming off this tie on beat 1 and then you've got 2 eighth notes, 2 and 3 and. Remember the quarter note. Don't rush it. Hold it for 3 and then 4 and. So in other words, you don't want to do this. What I did was I rushed the quarter note. Don't rush that quarter note. Very, very important. Easy to do, but that's not the rhythm. When you go to measure 3, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So you got a dotted quarter note, which means a quick eighth note before you move down to the E. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and off on 4. So there you have a nice long tie. And that's kind of the pattern in this piece. The right hand has lots of movement, and then it just sits still for a while. Now remember the second line, we moved down the 5 on A. The second line is almost entirely the same pattern rhythmically. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Right there, that's important. Now that's different. Remember the layering. Be ready to move that D on beat 1. And certainly don't forget about it when you add the left hand. That D's sneaky. Once you put the hands together, it's easy to overlook. It's kind of hiding there. So remember the tie is only for the G. And once you hit the D, it's another 4 counts. Now in the third line, we have our first rest that occurs on measure 1. Beat 1, excuse me. So that's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and. It's almost like an echo, right? E flat to F. And then the second measure, E flat to F again. And guess what? The 2 eighth notes, E flat to F. It's like they're picking up steam. Tempo is getting faster. Tempo's not getting faster, but rhythms are. But you're just going back and forth between E flat and F 3 times. You do that until measure 3. So that's 1, starting at the beginning of that line. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then there you are on beat 1. That's a dotted quarter note. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. This is just like the third measure on the top line. Dotted quarter note, eighth note with the same top note that you had in the dotted quarter note, and then the bottom note's the same note. No, actually that's not the same. It's the same rhythm, but the notes are different. D and G, and you're actually going to stay on D and G. It did not happen at the top of the page. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. That's tricky because you've got to have the fingering and the passage of the thumb under the second finger mastered and in tempo. And like I said, anticipate. Know about that G and E flat before you get there. Know where you're going. Now once you get there, that's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Same dotted quarter note followed by eighth note. I don't think there's been a moment yet where we have had a dotted quarter note followed by anything other than an eighth note in this book. So again, that's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So pretty basic, slow rhythms. But this is where it gets interesting. Remember the layering in these last 2 measures. So the F sharp and D I've got 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and. So I don't move my fifth finger until beat 2. And then 3 and 4 and top of the page, 1 and 2 and then this is just like the beginning. 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and off on beat 4. Now remember, the second measure of this next line is a little different. So let's check it out. Starting at the first measure, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So you got 4 eighth notes in a row on beats 2 and 3. 2 and, I thought I messed up. No, I didn't. Well, I don't know what I did. The G is still sharp on beat 3. I can't remember if I did it or not, but 2 and 3 and 4 and now it's G natural. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and now move your thumb. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now that's the same as the previous page right there. The E and the G moving to D. Beat 3, you have another quarter rest on beat 1. It's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. I messed up my fingering there. So on the second measure, beat 2, this gets a little tricky. You've got the second finger on E, 2, and then your thumb comes under, but it's just an eighth note. 3 and 4 and. I did the fourth finger here. It needs to be the third finger. That's a little easier to get to E and D. Once again, dotted quarter note, but this E, remember, holds for 3 counts. We really dug into this one earlier. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and only move the thumb. 1 and 2 and now move everything. 3 and 4 and then here's our B and E flat. Remember, if it feels a little weak, practice going to the notes, practice the fingering. So we got 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and now only move the thumb. 1 and now keep holding the thumb. 2 and 3 and now move the third finger down to A. 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and remember your outline. Now the roll starts just before the beat. Some people will roll it right on the beat. I like to roll it before the beat. So the last note, the G, is right on beat 1. So it's like this. 1, I'm going to start the measure before. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. 1. So that's actually on beat 1. Now your pedal is going to be down, so it's going to connect the jump. So if you leave early to get here, you can do that because your pedal is going to be down. So that takes care of our rhythm. So obviously the notes and fingering, you probably notice at this point, are the hardest thing. The notes and fingering, because rhythm has a lot to do with making sure you have the notes. When I work with people, I see faulty rhythms because they don't know where they're going. So obviously there's a lot to be said about taking the note layer by itself before adding the rhythm layer. Now, a lot of musicians eventually get to the point they can do both at once. Or you just go so slow that you do both. But I like doing it in layers as a beginner. So at this point, if you've really struggled to keep up with those rhythms that I went through, there's a good bet it's probably because you're not that comfortable yet with finding the notes, dealing with the fingering. That's a big part of it. I don't think there's any rhythms here that are too challenging. Now, the layers are challenging, and those I went through earlier too. And those I definitely agree on actually working out before you put the rhythms in. Work in the layers, work in the switches where, you're holding the pinky and you move to the thumb, and then you hold the thumb and you move the pinky. That's not a rhythm thing. That's a coordination thing. That's coordinating fingers in the hand. Which, again, in this piece, I don't think we've done anything quite to this extent earlier in the book. So this D key is really annoying me, so forgive me for picking at it. One nice thing I like about summertime, keys do not stick when it's a little more humid. And this piano does not have a humidifier. Some do. I should probably have one, but I've been too lazy to do anything about it. Anyways, we have not looked at the left hand yet, so we're going to look at the left hand. The left hand's tricky. It is tricky, indeed. It's not melody anywhere. All the melody's in the right hand. But back at the beginning, the one thing about the left hand is you don't have any eighth notes. Quarter notes, half notes, and whole notes. So it's a more basic rhythm. So back in the beginning, your 5 is on G, right below middle C, on beat 1. On beat 2 and 3, you have C and E. I like to do that with my second and thumb. And I think part of that's going to make sense here in just a moment. So that's on beat 2 and 3. Again on beat 4. And here's a big chord. And this is where, if you're playing well outside, well to the edge of the keyboard, it's going to be harder to get to this next chord, because look at where the next chord is. Watch my hand here. I have to come up and in. Now, I've talked before about playing into the black keys. Now that's playing into them. Now watch my hand from here. Piece of cake. But I will say this may not work for everyone. Now, if I haven't spoken more about this in the past, I apologize. If you can't get your fingers to go in between the black keys, now part of it could be you just need to practice more. Part of it is your fingers, you might just have big hands and big fingers. I've worked with people who can't fit their fingers in between the black keys. I have small hands, small fingers. What you want to do is make sure you get as close to them as possible. Get as close as possible, because the closer you are, the better off you are. The more near the edge, the further it's going to take. So what you're trying to do is reduce the amount of time. Now this playing in there is not just reducing the time, it's reducing all the motion completely. It's like I'm barely moving. It's a totally different movement. I'm expanding my hand out rather than moving it up and in. So the point is, you want to get to a position that's 1, the most comfortable, and 2, the least amount of time. Now it can be done that you play from here, and I've seen people jump around. It can be done. But work on getting as close to as possible. And if you can get in the keys, if you can fit your fingers in the keys, you can do it. That's just a matter of practice. If you can't fit your fingers in the keys, then get as close as you can. Now here's the trick. You have pedal. Pedal helps with this tremendously, because if I'm here and I'm holding down my pedal, I can lift off of that a little early and already be heading. I said beheaded. I don't want to say the word beheaded. Forgive me. So you see what I'm doing? I'm lifting a little bit early because of my pedal. It doesn't interrupt the rhythm. It's still a chord note, because it's a slow piece, because there's pedal. Now, you can't always get away with that. No. And you do have fast pieces of music where your hand's jumping all over the place. And that's a whole nother lesson. And that's obviously way down the road. But my point is, if I hadn't explained it in more detail, I apologize. It won't work for everybody. No. But be aware of the distance traveling. And you want to get it as small as possible. Now, if you compare what you're playing here in measure 1 is a G, C, and an E. It's also a C chord. Second inversion. C is my root note. I'm really moving. I'm keeping this middle C when I get to measure 2, and I'm moving the G and the E both down a half step. Now, keep in mind it's an F sharp. But for learning purposes on the piano, I'm coming from a 5th finger on G. I'm going down to F sharp. It's almost like flatting the G. Now, I don't want you to be like, oh, that's a G flat. But I want you, for learning purposes on the keyboard, to see it as I'm coming down to it. So the best way to learn this measure 1 and measure 2 is these two notes are both going the same direction, down half steps, middle C is still there with my second finger. Now I have to play it again too. So once you make those connections, I believe getting here will be easier no matter how close you are or far away you are from the keys. That helps tremendously. Now going to measure 3, my third finger, you notice, is on B or close to it. Maybe on B flat for some of you, but my third finger is going to B. My thumb, I'm going to slide it down to D. I got B and D right there on measure 3. Now on measure 4, I've got G, A, B, and D. There's a little skip there. It's not B to C, but B to D. 5, 4, 3, and 1 is my fingering. Now be on alert because measure 1 of the next line, I got to go down to F. So stretch a little bit further. F with the fifth finger, and then B flat and D on beats 2 and 3. B flat and D on beat 4. And then guess what? These two notes are going down half steps into the next measure. But a half step below F is not a black key. So it's I'm going to keep the B flat, and I'm going down to E and D flat. So it's E, B flat, and D flat. Again, practice, practice, practice what you're coming from and what you're going to. I'm here, and I'm going to here. And the closer, again, you are into the keys as possible, the easier this becomes movement-wise because it's only a half step. The thumb comes from D to D flat. The pinky goes F to E. Okay. Measure 3. You have an option here. You could either do 2 and 1 on the C and the A and 4 on the F. And it's the same for both measures. The other option is you could just switch it to 1 and 3 and then 5 on the F. I think that works as well. If you did... you know what? I'm going to go with 2 and 1 because I'm looking at where I'm going in the third line and what's the least amount of movement. This is a little bit better positioning. 2 and 1 on the A and C, 4 on the F. Now, either way, you're going to have to jump, but it's a little bit less jumping. You can compare. You can try 3 and 1 and 5, but it's going to be a bigger jump going here. So I like the 2 and the 1 and then the 4 and the F, and I'm going to go to 2 and 1. It's a big jump either way. F and A flat. That's tricky. Now, you are ending on an F. You're going to 2 on F, so there is a connection. You did play an A. You're going to A flat. I'm stretching it here, but I'm really reaching is what I meant to say. Reaching for a clue. But it's a jump is what it boils down to. You have to memorize this. 2 and 1. Now in beat 4, so that's a dotted half note. I forgot there is a few dotted half notes actually in our left hand. That's one of the few. Beat 4, 5 on C, obviously. Now in the next measure, you're back to F and A flat again. Same fingering, 2 and 1. Stay there with your thumb on A flat because on beat 3, that's still an A flat. And your fourth finger is going to go to D. And the next measure, it's 3 and 1 on E flat and G. There's another dotted half note. They're all suddenly appearing before me. On beat 4, B flat with your fifth finger. Come back to 3 on E flat in the last measure. Now we have some stretching. 2 on G. Thumb on B flat, and then 3 on G. Now when that happens, that means you're getting ready to reposition the hand. And it's going to help you get to A and C on the last line, 2 and 1. So if A and C is 2 and 1, F sharp and C on beat 3 and 4 is 4 and 1. This is feeling a little weak in here. Tell you what, you could do 3 and 1. that doesn't feel as weak actually. And then going to the 5 on the D in the next measure feels pretty good. If you did 4 and 1, see, this is a stretch. It can be done and you got pedaling, but that's tricky. So I'm going to say 3 and 1 on the C and F sharp, 5 on the D in the next measure, back to 3 and 1 on F sharp and C. Third measure, you got to take that third finger and move it up to B. And then thumb on D, 4 on A, thumb on D. I tell you what, do 4 on the G sharp, because I think it's going to feel pretty good going to 5 on G natural at the top of the page. You just fall right down into it, right? If you did 5 on G sharp, you slide, which, you know, obviously you can do it, but think about it. Does that feel as musical? Does that feel like you're as much control? I've done slides before. I don't like them on the pinky so much because then you're sliding your entire hand. If you're doing your second finger, there's more control. You see that? But sliding the pinky is sloppy. So the bottom line, last measure of page 102, let's do 4 on the G sharp. And then you nicely go into G natural with your 5th finger. And remember, this is like the beginning. So C and E with 2 and 1 again. And you've got that half step movement to F sharp, C, and E flat. Third measure, B and D with 3 and 1. Last measure, we got 5 on G, 4 on A, 3 on B, thumb on D. Now, second line, bring your 5th finger down to F. And then B flat and D, 2 and 1. B flat and D again. Half step movement, which feels a little different because of the F to E, but you're going to have E, B flat, D flat. Remember that fingering, 5, 2, and 1. And then I would be consistent with the fingering you did on page 102 here. I personally like 2 and 1 on the A and C, and then 4 on F. F again. A and C, and then 4 on F. And let's maintain the, no, let's not. This is different. Look, compare the first measure of the third line on both pages. So we went to 1 and 2, but that's because we have to go down to C. This is page 102. Here, you're going up to C. You were just there, right? In the last measure of the second line. So obviously we're going to come back to that C with our thumb. If we did 4 with F, I would just do 4 and 2 on F and A flat, and then there's your thumb on C. Now, this is a little tricky, but I'm looking ahead. Third measure, let's skip the second measure for a moment. Third measure, I got C again. So I want to keep that thumb handy. I can go to 2 and 3 on the B natural and A flat in measure 2. So from the beginning of the third line, I've got 4 and 2 on F and A flat. On beat 4, I'm going to go thumb on C. And I'm going to sort of bring my hand over a little bit and do 2 and 3. A flat and B natural. That means I can do 4 and 1 on the third measure. And you could do 3 and 1 on the A and C. You've got 2 beats of rest to move comfortably to 3 on F sharp and thumb on C, which you have to do at the bottom line. However, let's see. You could do 2 and 1. Why would you do that? Well, look at my third finger. It's available now. But you don't have to, because guess what? You got those 2 beats of rest. So you got time. So you could easily do the 3 and 1, because that's where you're going to be comfortably, and then just switch it. Options. So there are options. And when I go through later and play the piece, don't mind my fingering as much. My fingering is probably not going to be, I have that bad habit of just playing through a piece and jumping around. Don't get in my bad habits. So whatever fingering we're doing now, that's what stays. When I play the piece later on, it's more just so you can hear the music. But forgive me, I do miss some fingering that I comment on. So, uh, bottom line, so you definitely need 3 and 1. F sharp and C, 5 on D on beat 2. Back to F sharp and D. Yes, that's still an F sharp on beat 3, 5 on D. And then F natural, I would just do 3 and 1 because you're going to have to jump anyways to anything here. Big jump. So F and B, 3 and 1. This is G and F. Don't assume it's an octave. Most of the time we could. But when you have a big, a wide interval like that, and they're both lines or both spaces, that's actually a seventh. G and F. Obviously, it's going to be 5 and 1. Then for the last 2 measures, they don't tell you to do this, but I would jump 5 to C. And then you can just do 4 on D, 3 on E, stretch to 2 on the G. And then you need your thumb for C in the last measure. So the fingering is kind of tricky. The notes are kind of tricky. The left hand's tricky. It doesn't have quite the rhythm as the right hand. So that's the good news. Now here's the challenging news. Both hands, obviously, we're challenging hands separate. So we know how this works. We know when we put them together, it's just how? How do we do this? Remember my rules that you can't put hands together. I mean, you can't expect the hands to come together if you know them perfectly individually. More so, you can't expect... wait, how did I say that? My brain has failed me. Okay, let me start again. Just because... Okay, so you can't expect the hands to magically come together when you work them individually. I think for a lot of us beginners, we go in thinking, I got to just master these 2 hands and they're going to come together. No, absolutely not. If you go in with that mindset, you will fail. I'm sorry, that's just the reality of it. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I personally will fail, and I have failed. You have to go in with the mindset that, yes, you do need to work the hands separate. And if they're not good individually, then they will not be good together. You do have to work them individually. If you can't play them individually, there's no way you're going to play them together. It just doesn't work. But once you've mastered them individually, like I said, that doesn't mean they're suddenly just going to magically come together. But what you have to do is you have to start reading vertically, slowly, and dissect. Do not really spend much time playing the whole piece through. I know that's tempting. I know you want to hear that great music, but that might seem more fun in the short run, but in the long run, you're really wasting time. It's a game of patience. It's a game of patience, because if I have 2 people and I'm willing to bet a lot of money on this, a lot, because I know it's true because of my experience. If I gave 2 people the assignment and I for 2 weeks, and I said, I want person letter A, how about not number A, but letter A, letter A, I want you to just, play through the piece as often as you can, hands together, for 2 weeks. Just start at the beginning, go to the end, start over again, and just do that. Or I'm going to have person B, I'm going to tell them, I'm going to say, I want you to practice like a line a day. Play a measure again and again. Line up everything. Go slow. Things like that. I'm willing to bet a ton of money that that person's going to have it in 2 weeks. While the first person's still going to be struggling. And they're going to be frustrated. And they're going to be like, when am I ever going to learn piano? So, now, is this 100% true? Nothing is. There's always exceptions. There's some people that are just, they're born with a gift. They're born with a gift. There's people I put hands together and can do it. But I'm talking about 99% of us, the reality of it. And the reality of it is I was not born a musician. I was not born with the ability to just play. In fact, when I was in kindergarten, I took a music test. I failed it. It was my worst thing ever. Yes, it was kindergarten, and failing is not really huge, but we were graded. I went to a school where we were graded on it, and I got an F on music. I did start taking piano lessons at the age of 8, and I had to work at it every single day. I practice. So it didn't come. What I am only got good at it because I worked hard. I dedicated time. Now, for some of us, we're adults now. We don't have time. A lot of time is already up. But I can tell you smart ways to practice so you don't waste your time and you use your time more wisely. And that's having patience. And it may feel like I don't have patience. Well, in 2 weeks, you're going to know it so much better than if you just played through and through. So I apologize if I'm lecturing, if I'm preaching to the choir, whatever. I say it because I want everyone to succeed. I'm not teaching here so I can make out or I can benefit or I can have an argument or whatever. No. I want you to succeed. I want you to succeed. And I'm not afraid to tell you all this information. It's not any secret. For some people it is. Some people say, they want big bucks. I don't want the big bucks. Sure, go on Patreon and support me for $5. This is my career. But I'm serious. I don't require that. I only want you to do your best. And I want you to learn those things that took me a long time to learn. So again, I apologize for that delay, but I want you all to know that I care and I want you to succeed. That is my dream, for you to succeed. So here we are, putting the hands together. Now, the hands are not actually going to be crossed over. It feels pretty tight here at the beginning. I got 5 on G and I got 5 on B. If I laid out all 5 fingers, I'm on D and E between the left hand and the right hand, okay? I'm not going to put the pedal in just yet, but let's go ahead and spend a moment lining up everything, and then we'll get the pedal a little bit later. Now, I'm not going to dig in rhythm when I do this. Keep that in mind. When I put the hands together, I'm aware of rhythms because I've practiced them individually. But now I'm just focused on what hand is playing individually, what hands, and when the hands are playing together. So on beat 1, G and B. Now on beat 2, it's the left hand, the C and E. While you're holding that, on beat 3, you play the B again in the right hand. And you're going to hold that and play C and E on beat 4. Now, beat 1 of the next measure, your right hand's still holding, your left hand goes to that chord. Now you're going to hold that chord, and the right hand plays the rest of the measure. Now here's a very hard spot. You got to know all these notes very well. These are cool chords, very nice chords. You're going to get some new harmonies you've never had in this book and probably won't again in this book. But with that comes pretty tough playing. So we got B and D, we got F sharp and A. Now you hold the B and D the whole measure. When you get to the last measure, your right hand's holding the E, and remember the left hand's just quarter notes. Nice and steady, don't rush them. Be ready for this on the second line. So I'm here. F and A are together. I'm holding the A. I go to B flat and D in the left hand. On beat 3, I go to A in the right hand. Beat 4, B flat and D again. Next measure, still holding the A in the right hand. Go to this chord. Hold that, and then I play the rest of the measure with my right hand. Third measure, a lot of changes there. A and C in the right hand. Now, I went to the 3 and 1. I told you that might happen. I think the 2 and 1's better. And then go to 4 on the F. Now remember, don't let this sneak up on you. On beat 1 of the last measure, I got to go to A and C and D in my right hand while still holding the G in my right hand. See that? It's tricky. And then I was holding my A and C. I shouldn't do that. Then I got my F. Now, when we go to the third line, you do have a break on beat 1 in the right hand, which you'll need because you're going to be focused on 2 and 1, F and A flat. Hold it. Beat 2, right hand on E flat. Beat 3 is F. Hold that. Coming on C in the left hand. Next measure, I'm still holding this F. F and A flat in the left hand. E flat on beat 2. Beat 3, everything plays. Beat 4, it's just the right hand. And here we got another big chord. Nice chord. Very nice chord. E flat, G, D, and G. The right hand continues. Hold this D on beat 4. I'm coming down to my B flat. Keep holding the D into measure beat 1. Now, this is tricky, but the fingers work together here, G and E flat. It's the second finger, both hands. Now remember, we got this cross under, but both hands are going to use the thumb. I'm going to use the thumb on B flat and the thumb on G. But here, look where my second finger is in the left hand. I got to move it to 3 on G and 2 on the B flat. That's going to be a little tricky because it was together with 2s, it was together with thumbs, and then it's not together, it's 3 and 2. Very, very hard spot. That's a measure you need to practice again and again and again. Don't just play through it and say, I get it later. That's an example of wasting time. Discipline yourself. Play it again and again. It's boring now. You'll be glad you did it in a week or so. Bottom line, I got A and C, G and E flat. Another big chord. There's a lot of this in the song. This is where it gets tricky. The accidentals have a lot to do with it, but this is where this song gets really tricky. All these notes coming together. E flat's by itself in the right hand. Beat 3 and 4. Another big chord. F sharp, C, A flat. It's an interesting chord. Sounds unique, but it's correct. Next measure, I'm still holding this A flat in the right hand. Go down to D. Beats 3 and 4. Both hands play. F sharp, C in the left, A natural in the right. Now in the next measure, this is a little tricky. I got to go to F sharp and D in the right hand. Third finger moves to B. And then D, A, D, and then be careful here. On beat 1, G sharp in the left hand, F natural in the right hand, and I'm still holding the D with my 5th finger. Now, hold those 2 notes you just played. Move your 5th finger up on beat 2 to E, 3rd finger on C, 4th finger on D. If you're still holding these notes, you've won the race. If you've lifted, gotta practice it. Hold them down. Now, in the top line, it's kind of almost back to, well, it is like the beginning, except 2 on B in the right hand. Move to C and E, and then beat 3, move your 5 to the B, and now it's just like the beginning. So it's left hand, right hand, both hands, then just right hand. Now hold the right hand, now it's left hand. Both hands on the second line, left hand, right hand, left hand. Holding the right hand, go to left hand. Now all this is right hand. Third measure, both hands, left hand. Now hold the G in the right hand and play just the D in the right hand when you go to A and C, also in the left hand. Once again, I did the wrong fingering, forgive me. Don't worry about that right now. Third line, F and A flat. 3rd finger on F. 4 on G. Thumb on C. Wait, let me do that again. So, 3rd line, I'm holding down the left hand on beat 1. Then beat 2, right hand. Beat 3, right hand. Now, keep holding the right hand. Go to C on beat 4 in the left hand. Still holding the right hand, go to A flat and B. Hold that down while you finish out measure 2 with only the right hand. Remember, you got the cross under. Both hands on beat 1 of measure 3. Then it's just the right hand. Remember, you're layering here. Keep holding this D, and you're going to go to A, C, and F sharp. Now you get a break here on beat 3. Your left hand's done playing. Your right hand, 2 on B, 3 on C, and then be ready for this. Now it all comes together. The right hand was hard, the left hand was hard, and then we're putting it all together. F sharp, C, B, and E flat. Down to D, and then you have B flat and E flat in the right hand. The left hand is still the same notes. Stay on this E flat with your pinky on the next measure. Everything else comes in. Now, everything you just played, you just hold that down while you go to E natural, E flat. And when I go to beat 3, my thumb is staying down on the A. And I'm moving to G, F in the left hand, and D with the third finger. My D is so weak here. Stay down on your left hand and move 3 to A in the right hand. And then both hands come in on the next measure. And then the roll goes like this. So, I did it backwards. No, I didn't do it backwards. I'm sorry. I think I said it backwards earlier. So the way the roll works is the G's on beat 1, right? Because we said I like to roll it before the beat. So you land on beat 1. That means the C, which is not a roll, is on beat 1. So if that's on beat 1 and the G's on beat 1, it goes like this. So from the prior measure, remember we got pedaling, so I can be lifting my right hand early. See how that works? So it's almost like an entirely new ball game when you put the hands together. And like I said, if you haven't worked hands separate, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be a real headache. It's a big combination of flats and sharps, new chords and new feels combinations on the piano. But when you have all those weird and awkward combinations of black and white notes and fingering and all, slow vertical reading like we just did. Ask yourself as you go through it, is my right hand playing in this moment, or is my left hand playing in this moment, or are both hands playing in this moment? And on top of that, there's a lot of holds, right? You're holding a note in the one hand while the other hand comes in. And then you've got that two-part layering, that two-part voicing. So it's not like I can just lift when my left hand when my right hand plays and lift my right hand when my left hand plays. No, I'm still holding. So that's the other part of it. So one, like I said, is it the right hand that's playing in the moment, or is it the left hand, or is it both? And then two, making sure I hold any long notes and ties. So that is super tricky. And because of that, this is potentially one of the hardest pieces in the book. I'm saying that about every piece now because these are the hardest pieces in the book. But it's really, really good music. I'm going to play this piece for you in just a moment. But one last thing, we are going to add the pedal and look at a few dynamics, and then that will be it. So let's go ahead and bring out the pedal camera, and we will look at the pedal here in just a second. All right, so we got the pedal camera on, and let's take just a few moments here and look at some of the pedaling. If you notice the first line, it is pretty regular. You're pedaling every measure. But when you get to the third line and the fourth line on the first page, that's when it gets a little more detailed. Now, this is a piece where you can go ahead and have your foot down on the pedal before you begin, because both hands do come in together on beat 1. So that's one less thing you have to worry about. You can bring them all in together at the same time too. You can bring both right, left, and your foot on the pedal as well, like so. But if your foot's already down, it's still going to be the same effect and the same sound. And like I said, that might be one less thing to worry about. So if your foot's already down, I'll often do that. Just make sure you don't accidentally hit another note or something before you play. So I'm not going to go through the rhythm entirely. We did that earlier. I'm just going to focus on exactly when you pedal. So it's more like what we did when we put the hands together. We coordinated when the left and right hand play together or don't play together. It's kind of the same thing here. But I would recommend you go through all of that and get comfortable with that first, and then add the pedal on last. So Your foot's down, and you come together on beat 1. Now in measure 2, when you hit this chord, remember the rule with the pedal. You come up with the foot as the chord goes down, and then your foot goes right back down before the next note, which is in the right hand. And you're going to play all those notes with the foot down, and then third measure, both hands come together and your foot comes up and then right back down. Now in the last measure, it's just the left hand that's playing because your right hand's holding. Make sure your foot's back down. Doesn't matter what the note is, that foot needs to really be up and down quickly. I'm kind of going slow like this so you can see that movement. But in real time, it's like this. So right here. See, that was just a quick up, down. So that's essentially where you want to be. Now going on to the next line. So remember, adjust your fingering slightly and the hands come down, the foot comes up and then back down. So far it's been beat 1 of every measure. Here we go in the second measure. Same thing, the pedal up, chord down. Hold it for the whole measure. Next measure, beat 1. And you're going to do the same thing here on the last measure. So remember, you're still holding that G, by the way, in the right hand. Now, third line's where it gets a little trickier. We got this big move. Now, when you have a big move, I'm still going to keep that pedal down, and that's the whole point of keeping it smooth. When I get ready to play this on beat 1, I play it and my foot comes up. Be back down before beat 2 on the right hand. Now beat 3 in the right hand is where the pedal comes up. And then you're down, and then beat 4. And now this is the first measure where you don't pedal on beat 1. The second measure. You won't pedal until here on beat 3, and then beat 1 of the third measure. And here we go on the last measure on beat 1, you're going to pedal. And then the bottom line, we're going to pedal on beat 1 and beat 3 right here. And then beat 1 of the next measure. And then beat 3. And then beat 1 of the next measure. So in this spot, you're pedaling every 2 beats on this bottom line until you get here on the last measure. Beat 3, you don't pedal. So again, the bottom line, you're going to pedal every measure, beat 1 and beat 3 until you get to the last measure. Right there, you don't pedal. Now going to the top of page 103, we pedal on beat 1 and hold it for the whole measure. Next measure, pedal. So now it's back to every measure on beat 1. So we'll pedal here. And the last measure on beat 1. Going down to the second line on beat 1. Now check this out. Beat 2, we're going to pedal, and then that's it for the rest of this line. So hold it. Which is odd that they would do that. I think that's a mistake. Yeah, that's a mistake because the same notes that we had on page 102 in the second line, third measure are the same notes we have here. And the fact that we're going from G sharp to G natural, that's like 99% of the time you pedal when you're going between here and here. That's a half step. So that's a mistake. That should be pedaled. So yeah, we're going to pedal both the third and fourth measure. So on the second line, page 103, do pedal the first beat of every measure. So back to the beginning of that line, we'll pedal here on second measure. And let's go ahead and pedal on the third measure and the fourth measure. Going down to the third line, we're going to pedal on beat 1. Second measure, beat 1. Third measure, beat 1. And the fourth measure, beat 1. And we're going to pedal here on beat 3 when only the right hand plays. And then bottom line, let's pedal. Oh, I forgot. We're supposed to hold that on beats 3 and 4. Sorry about that. Then the bottom line, we're going to pedal on beat 1 and beat 3. And the next measure, beat 1 and beat 3. Third measure, beat 1. And that's it until the end of the song. Okay? So that covers the pedaling. There's not a whole lot to it. It's just knowing where you pedal and knowing how to pedal, which at this point, hopefully you do. So remember, as the chord goes down, the pedal comes up and then right back down. So it's an up-down motion. And naturally, pedaling is going to be a lot easier if you've learned everything else first. If you're adding pedal while you're still learning notes, that's really going to be frustrating. The only last thing to cover are dynamics. It starts out mezzo piano, and this song is pretty much soft throughout. When you get to the third line on page 102, it grows at the last measure. Now, that makes sense. I did the wrong fingering, but the notes are going up in the melody. Still did the wrong fingering. Sorry about that. But it grows there, and then you're in a mezzo forte at the bottom, and then it comes back down on the third measure on the bottom line. When I play this in a moment, you'll hear me incorporate that. And then you're soft pretty much to the end. Now, when you get to 103 at the end of the third line, a forte. Whoops, I got sloppy there. But then when you get to the second measure on the bottom line, it's suddenly soft. They should put S-U-B period. S-U-B is short for subito. Subito means suddenly. So it's suddenly soft. It's a quick drop off. It's not gradual. It's not a diminuendo, but suddenly soft. So that basically covers it. So this piece is very smooth. Now the pedaling really goes a long way for helping you do that. Of course, you've got the layers, the two-part voicing, right? Where you're holding a note while playing another, a lot of times within the same hand. That keeps the piece smooth too. But there's nowhere in this piece where it should be choppy or staccato or anything. It's very smooth and delicate. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and play the whole piece for you. And that'll pretty much cover the lesson. So let me give you a little count off. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... And if you want to, at the very end, you can put a little retard in those last two measures. One last thing is, as always, try to play your right hand louder than your left hand. That'll be extra challenging in this piece, of course, because your left hand is really hard. There's a lot of hard chords there, and so you've got to really know it well in order to back off and play it soft. But again, that just will add so much more to the expression of the piece. Now, I played that a little bit slower than it probably really should go, but I'm going to encourage you to really take this one slow because it is going to be a challenge. Now, it works, though. If you play it pretty, it still works at that slower tempo, but it's probably going to go even a little bit faster. Hopefully sooner than later, I have a separate video up which you can access, a performance-only video where I just strictly play this piece straight through as if I were performing. Not that different than what you just heard then, but I may play it a little bit faster, maybe a little more expressive in some places, but that pretty much is the idea. Okay, guys, so again, thanks for sticking with me. Another long lesson, but another challenging piece, and I still want to break it down with you. Down to all individual notes and fingering so that it's still very easily accessible for all of you. As always, I wish you the best with this piece. And thanks again for sticking around, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next lesson.